I am live. Okay. On. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let's get these cameras here. Oh, wrong way. How you guys doing out there? Thanks for waiting. A little behind today. Few tech stuff going on, but thank you guys for staying in here. And you guys are going to be very excited that you have, because of course, like we do normally, we bring a lot of great information for everyone out there who one is either in business, getting ready to start a business. As an individual, we're always looking for additional stream of income. And we have been talking about different ways to get additional stream of income. Of course, we talked about how to get your business started and or maybe how to turn a hobby into a business. Anything that can bring in additional stream of income to you and or for you to eventually go off into starting your own business and, you know, start acquiring some wealth and making some more money. All right, Laverne Smith, thank you for jumping on. Hi, sis. How are you? Good afternoon, Margie. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for jumping in here today. Hit like and share on this video. We're going to make it very quick. And a lot of this stuff that we talk about is because people are always calling and asking these questions. And again, like I said, on a daily basis, because we have hundreds and hundreds of clients on a regular basis, someone or a few folks is always calling, asking about this stuff. And again, this is why we're here, because I like to be able to assist folks and help them in which direction they need to go for their business. And a lot of times people would have started an LLC or they started some other business, and then they want to know if they have another idea what they should do about it. Okay, so today we want to talk about, can you use your LLC for more than one business? And like I said, this is a question that's very, very common. I'm constantly talking to folks about this. And one of the things is, let's just talk about what is an LLC. Let's just start off with that. I like for you guys to be refreshed with what this is. Everyone's talking about LLC, and you hear these letters all the time. And what it stands for, the first point today, what is an LLC? It stands for a limited liability company. right? And limited liability is exactly what it means. The liability for that company is very limited. So this is one of the reasons why it's an LLC. It is an entity. It's a formal organization of a specific business entity. There's several other types of business entity. The LLC is the one that we want to talk about today. Of course, you know, you have the corporations and S corp, and there's other different types of business entity. We want to talk about the LLC because the LLC have gotten very, very, very common. It's one of the simplest business organization that you can form. It's real simple. It's simple to run. And so it's a lot easier to manage. And so a lot of times people would go ahead and form an LLC for starters. They may turn this into something else later on as they start understanding the difference between the different type of business structure. But initially, they will start an LLC because they will move from either operating as an individual, a sole proprietor. So the easiest thing and the simplest thing for most people to do is form an LLC. All right. So the thing that I want you guys to understand about the LLC, one of the main reasons why a lot of people form the LLC, it is considered one for tax purposes, a disregarded entity, which means that the profit or the losses from your business comes to the members or the partners, and they are the ones who pay the taxes. So this LLC, and keep in mind, guys, LLC does not pay its own taxes. The partners pay the taxes. The members of the LLC pay the taxes. So that's one of the major feature of this LLC that I want to make sure that you guys understand. And you know, it's so difficult because a lot of folks is not understanding the process well, and I'm constantly explaining, which is perfectly fine with me. But I always want to make it clear, because if you're operating this business, a lot of times you will form a certain business structure, but you don't understand all of the various things that goes along with forming that business structure. So the LLC, for one thing, it is a form of business structure that you form, and to operate your business for tax purposes, you pay the taxes for the profits that the LLC makes as the member or anyone else that's in that LLC with you. So it flows through the personal, and then if it's in a state that you pay taxes to, especially here in California, you pay that state an LLC tax. So that's kind of the difference between having an LLC or operating as a sole proprietor, as a personal business on your tax return. Okay, so number one, what is an LLC? So that's the first point. I just wanted to clarify what that is. Second point today is, why should you form an LLC? Now, an LLC, again, a limited liability company, why should you form it? The first reason why is because of the word liability. You want to make sure, because when you form a limited liability company, it's a totally separate structure. This business is standing on its own 2 feet. It is its own entity, which means that any liability or debt, for instance, if that company is not able to pay its debt for some reason, something happens, they can't pay the bills, and or they're being sued for any reason, they are liable for that lawsuit, or they are liable for those debt. And you, as the member, as the partner of that limited liability company, may not be subject to any personal liability, any seizure of your personal assets, which is major. This is why people do this, to protect their personal assets. So that company is responsible for its own debt, it's responsible for its own liability. If it gets sued, it has to pay that liability, or it's responsible to pay those debts. So that's one of the main reasons why you want to form an LLC. That's one of the business structure. Of course, you could file, again, another business structure like a corporation or an S corporation. However, because we're talking about the LLC, that's the reason why you want to form an LLC. And it's better for you to operate as an LLC than as an individual sole proprietor, because you have that liability protection. This is super major, and especially depending on what business that you guys are in, the protection from liability is major, because as you know, some businesses has more exposure to something happening than others, right? So be very careful of the type of business that you are in, and make sure that you have your liability protection based on the business that you're in, and you can protect your personal assets so that it would not be seized in the event there is some lawsuit or something that the company is not able to take care of, right? So that's the second point today, guys. That's the we want to talk about. We're talking about is, can you use your LLC for more than one business? So my third point is going to cover the answer to that question. Margie says, how many members an LLC have? Margie, the number of members in an LLC, the actual number, I don't know, but you can have, because I know in an S corp you can have up to like 75 or 100. It's, there's a lot of members that you can have in an LLC. But a good point there, because if you have more members in an LLC, it now becomes a partnership. And I did mention that it becomes a partnership for tax filing purposes, depending on the amount of members that's in there. So yeah, you can have a lot of members in there. I believe that number is 7,500. There's a lot of members that you can have in an LLC. I can look that up and give you the exact stuff, because the same thing with an S corp, the numbers of partners that's in an S corporation is also limited, but it's major. So I'll tell you what that number is. But good point. Cherise says, does this only apply to LLCs, or S corporation also have more than one business under their name? Yes. So let's see. Does this only apply to LLC or S corporation have more than one business under their name? Yeah. So S corporation can have more than one business, right? It's similar to the LLC. What happens is, we'll talk about in the third point, how can you use it for multiple business? And this is exactly what we'll talk about. And then, of course, you could do this for your S corporation as well as your LLC. So a lot of people have different ideas, right? You start the business off and you have one particular idea. And so you form your S corporation or LLC with that idea in mind. And then while you're doing that business, you think of some other business idea that you might want to operate. This is how this usually comes about. For instance, if you're in the business of, let's say, repairing cars, then all of a sudden you decided, well, I want to sell car parts, which is something kind of different, but it's related. And or let's say you're in the food business, you might be a caterer, and all of a sudden you decided that you wanted to start packaging food items for sale. If you're in the music business, you might want to start selling merchandise. So this is how other business ideas comes into play. You might want to sell merchandise, for instance, and create a whole new marketing and everything for your merchandise, unlike what you're already doing. So this is how we come up with a different business idea that's totally related. So how you operate this, guys, there are several ways that you can do this. But one of the most common, which is what we want to talk about, is you want to form a DBA. Right? A DBA is a doing business as. It is what is called a fictitious business name filing that you do. So what's happening is your major business, your major LLC, or the major S corp, since you mentioned that once, you guys, the major business, which is your main business, that business will be doing business as your other businesses that you want to form. So what happens is, you can keep two sets of books. The one for your main business, of course, another set of records for your DBA. They can collect income. They can pay their own expenses, because once you form a DBA, guys, you could go to the bank and open its own bank account. That's the other thing. You can go and open a bank account under that other business name, and everything is operated separately. You get the money in and you pay the money out on two separate sets of books, right? But what happens at the end, this is what happens. They come together. And they protect you as far as the liability is concerned, because you're still underneath that umbrella. And for tax purposes, you only file, and this is the part that gets everybody, you only file one tax return under your main business. So a lot of people is confused about that. You can have multiple DBAs, right? You can have multiple DBAs. You can just file them and say your main business entity is doing business as XYZ, is doing business as some other name. It's doing business as, and then you can do separate accounting, so you know what income, what expenses, what that business is doing, and then it comes together. It's under one umbrella because it's all under your main corporation. So you're protected for liability purposes, and you file one tax return because it is all under the same EIN, because they're doing business as your main business entity files the taxes for all of those business collectively. All right. So that sounds a lot easier than, I mean, it's easier done than it sounds to you guys. But the key here is, yes, you can run more than one business under your LLC or your S corporation. And one of the ways, there's several different ways that you could do this, but one of the most common ways, guys, again, is just file DBAs for those new businesses and run them all up under their separate DBA name. And then they're still protected under that umbrella, and you file one tax return. That's the most beautiful part of it all. This is great information. I can just form a DBA for all of my other businesses. Sounds easy. Thank you. Yes. Exactly. That's what you do. You form DBAs, right? You file a fictitious business name, and it allows you to open a separate bank account. You run all those businesses separately, account for everything separately, and you're still covered under your umbrella and the liability factor. You're perfectly fine, and you file one tax return. All right. So that makes it so much easier, correct? As opposed to having all these various business entities formed, which gets very expensive, guys, because mind you, you have to file taxes and do all the documentation and pay for all these separate businesses if you form separate business entities for each one of your business ideas, right? Makes it a little bit more complicated and a little bit more expensive. Hi, you guys over here on IG. Thanks for jumping in, right? So today we're talking about, can you use your LLC for more than one business? And someone mentioned the S corporation, same scenario. Yes, you can. The answer to that. Let me recap the first point. What is an LLC? And an LLC is a limited liability company, which is a business structure that is formed so it can be independent of your personal taxes and of your personal operation. So you and the business entity are two separate things. That's the reason why you form an LLC. One of the major reasons is number two, why, is so that you can be protected from liability if there's some lawsuit and for some reason they have to sue the business, and or there's debt that the business is not able to pay. Your individual assets, you as the member of the LLC, or anyone else for that matter that's a member of that LLC, is not personally liable for the debts or the liability of that company. For the most part, they cannot come through, or they should not be able to, because there's not anything is 100% proof, but it is protecting your personal assets from any lawsuit or any other tax liability. And this is the main reason why you want to form an LLC as opposed to operating as a sole proprietor. All right. Third point, again, is, can you use it for multiple business? That's the main point today, guys. Yes, you can. And my main process that you need to go through, and you have to be careful how you do this, because you want to make sure that you maintain the liability protection. That's the whole point here. So what you do is you form different DBAs for your other business ideas. Again, like if you were in, say, a catering business and you want to start packaging and selling, food items to stores and wherever, you want to make sure that you do that completely separate. Form different DBAs, and what you can do with that is operate them separately. They're under the umbrella for the liability factor, and what you do is you file one tax return. All right. So that's fairly easy, right? That's fairly easy. Any more comments out here, you guys, if you have any more questions regarding this matter? Karen just jumped on here. Good afternoon, Karen. Good afternoon. So this is great information. And so Cherie said that she's doing the form DBAs for her other business ideas, which is also wonderful. So if you do that, again, you come up under one umbrella, and you can easily file your taxes, keep separate accounting. When you file those taxes, though, keep in mind that all of those the totals of all of your DBAs is what goes on a tax return. Okay, so you're going to have accounting for each DBA so that we can have one grand total for the tax return. Okay, so yeah, hi Karen and Samaria Dollar. Thanks. I heard you mention that there are other business structures. Is an LLC the best one? An LLC, guys, it all depends. So a lot of sole proprietors form LLCs, and they usually have like a single member LLC, right? And so because they have the liability protection, but for the IRS, which does not recognize a single member LLC as a separate business, is a part of your personal tax return. It makes only your state view you as a separate entity. So is it the best one? In my opinion, if you are forming an LLC and a business structure because you want to separate yourself from the business, I personally feel that you want to have your federal and your state taxes totally separate from you. In that case, you would want to form a corporation and operate more like an S corporation. And it's still a pass-through entity. You're still responsible for the taxes, same as with the LLC. But at this point, now the IRS sees you as a separate entity from yourself, and you file a personal tax return and you file a business return with the federal and the state. So in my opinion, if it's a single member LLC, preferably an S corporation, to me works better, simply because the whole idea of forming a business structure is to have them completely separate from you. And that way you can handle your own affairs and the business handle its own affairs. Okay, so with the LLC, for the federal purposes, if it's one person, it doesn't quite work that way. All right, great question, great question. All right, so what else we have on here? Thank you for tuning in. Say thanks for tuning in, Karen. Elaine's desk. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Okay, so Elaine's desk is out here. How you guys over here on IG? If you guys have any more questions, this is a very exciting topic. I actually do enjoy speaking about this stuff because, again, every day folks are a little concerned about what they should do. One, like a great question, whether you should form an LLC instead. I have a lot of people. One of the point I want to make clear is that if you have already formed an LLC, guys, and you need to turn it into some other business structure, like say the corporation and the S corp, it's okay because you can easily elect to do that. So you don't have to start over. Okay. So I want to make that clear because a lot of people feel that they need to start something new. You don't have to. We can always turn your LLC into an S corp if it works. Thanks for the for the learning opportunity. You're very welcome, Margie. You're very welcome, guys. If you have any more questions, you gotta put it in the chat, or I'll come back through here and look this stuff up and answer those questions accordingly. If not, you guys, if you need to or make any consultation appointment, you can reach me at Proby Tax and Accountant, and that number is 323-290-9034. And if you need to definitely get an entity form, tax returns done, any other type of business consultation, of course, our business do all type of services. We have payroll services, tax problem resolution, all that stuff. You can go to our website at probytax.com, check out our services. And in the meantime, I want you guys to be prepared to come to our workshop. I'm having a workshop on April the 21st. Come to a workshop on April the 21st. Signed up at elainesdesk.com. And for those of you who need to get your business started, I will teach you how to start and operate a successful business. We'll talk about the business structure, which was one of the questions that we had earlier, whether the LLC or the any other type of business entity is a better one. We'll talk about that. Usually I like to talk about your whole purpose of the business, where you see it going and all that good stuff. So, and that will determine what type of business structure is best for you. So we'll discuss that too. So we'll talk about how to get that business started and how to run and operate it and become very, very successful. We have done this over the last 35 years, setting up business and assist them in making millions of dollars. So we want to make sure that you guys do the same thing. All right. So she said, thank you, sis. Mara says, you provide such great information, all for free. Yes, all for free. Amazing. Most professionals don't do that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that compliment. And I do, because the more that we can help each other, the more successful we can make, then in the long run, it all turns into cash for everybody. The more money you can make, the more money our company make. So I really do appreciate that compliment. Thank you so much for jumping in here. All right, guys. With that said, you guys keep your notification on, hit like and share on this video. I would like for you guys to join us every Tuesday and Thursday for more of this free information. You guys have a wonderful rest of your Thursday afternoon and Have a fabulous weekend, because I don't know what's going on with these weeks and these months because the month is over. All right. So you guys take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of yourself. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.